Why is one man facing 5 years in prison for not wearing a mask in 2025? And just for reference, you'll get less prison time for scamming $500,000 in COVID benefits. And the prosecutor in this whole debacle is exactly the kind of guy you'd expect. Let's talk about it. Washington State lifted its COVID state of emergency in 2022, and a year later, the Department of Health lifted its mask mandate. But in the 2024 election, Island County Auditor Sheila Kreider imposed her own mask mandate. Apparently that summer, almost half her staff got COVID, and since they're all over 65, she couldn't afford to have that happen again. She also had concerns about fentanyl-laced ballots, which makes sense because I'm sure that's a key voting bloc in Washington. Even though the county auditor doesn't have the authority to impose their own mask mandate, hers only applied to the ballot counting room, and observers who didn't want to wear one could watch from the hall. But Tim Haslow didn't want to watch from the hall. He's the former chair of the county's Republican Party, a Navy veteran, and outspoken opponent of mask mandates. So Haslow refused to mask up or leave the ballot counting room. Apparently somebody called him an asshole. He responded, "I know who you are." And then they called the cops. So much for police reform. Initially, prosecutor Greg Banks only charged Haslow in district court with a single misdemeanor count of disorderly conduct. But since Haslow didn't want to accept the so-called exit ramps given to him, Banks upped the charges to include a felony in Superior Court. And surely it wasn't a personal vendetta with the self-proclaimed husband and father's history of posts calling conservatives Nazis, Trump an asshole, and so many Americans gullible and stupid. Real neutral guy. Anyway, charges filed included unauthorized access to a voting center, which is a felony, disorderly conduct, and criminal trespass in the first degree. Banks also filed charges against Tracy Abel, the 61-year-old former vice chair of the Republican Party, who didn't wear a mask either. So the case went to trial, where jurors found Haslow guilty of misdemeanor criminal trespass and unauthorized access, which is a Class C felony and the same magnitude of criminal offense as someone trying to lure a minor for predatory purposes. He's now facing 5 years in prison, and that felony means losing his voting rights, his gun rights, and possibly his job. His civil suit also got dismissed because the judge said the county auditor does have the authority to manage things in her office, which apparently includes mask mandates. Haslow's new attorney, Angus Lee, said during the trial the jury asked for a copy of Washington's laws, and the court didn't provide them. There's also video footage of other people in the ballot counting room without masks, who, for whatever reason, didn't get slapped with a felony. Now they plan to appeal all the way to the Supreme Court. Update: since filming this video, Tim Haslow has been sentenced to 40 hours of community service. He also must pay $200 in court costs, a $500 fine, and submit a DNA sample to the state. Because of the felony conviction, he was forced to surrender his firearms, and he lost his security clearance, which cost him his job. Thanks, Greg Banks. So why are we ruining lives over masks that don't work?